You will have to decide when you confront the strangest, most incredible hero ever to appear in comics. You will see what he does. You will wonder how he does it. But always waiting in the wings are his two greatest enemies, the men who challenge him and death himself. Today on the Comic Book Report, Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerads. Stick around and check it out. Greetings everyone, my name is Dominic and today you're tuning in to the Comic Book Report, where we review comic books and graphic novels so you can get an idea of what to read. And today we're back in the world of DC Comics, checking out one of Tom King's works I have wanted to read forever. That's right, we're talking about Mr. Miracle, and right from the top here, I just want to say a huge thank you to friend of the channel, friend in general, Jake from The Brave and the Boys, for sending me this copy. I know he recently upgraded to the recently released Absolute Mr. Miracle, which looks really fantastic. He released a great kind of review or overview of that piece not too long ago. At any rate, he sent me this standard size hardcover and I had a blast making my way through. I can't wait to talk about it today, but before we do, I'd just like to shout out as well the channel sponsor, OrganicPriceBooks.com. If you're looking to pick up your own comic book collected editions, maybe even the Absolute Mr. Miracle that was released, I hope you would check out their website. You can find a link for it in the video's description, and if you see anything on the site you like, you can use my discount code at checkout, The Comic Book Report, to save $2 off of your order. Please note if you use my affiliate link or code to make a purchase, I will earn a small commission, but it's a fantastic way to support the channel. Thank you so much for considering. Now let's get started with today's review. First, some quick facts about today's collection. The issues in this volume were written by Tom King and illustrated by Mitch Gerads. The issues in this collection were published by DC Comics beginning in 2017. As far as what this edition collects, it includes Mr. Miracle issues 1 through 12. And finally, this is a standard size hardcover edition with glossy print paper stock, a glued binding, and a total of 320 pages. At this time, I'd like to go ahead and issue a general spoiler warning. I will be flipping through the contents of today's collection and commenting on plot points throughout. Additionally, I'd like to issue a mature content warning. There are brief instances of sexuality and light nudity, so please be advised for younger audiences. You've been advised. Okay, and here's our first look at the front cover of this standard size hardcover. Right from the top, I really do enjoy this. I like that we have the stylized Mr. Miracle font. We have Mr. Miracle kind of pushing back the black at the bottom, and then we have kind of the stylization of Darkseid is kind of stamped or typewritten across the entire front cover. You can see it pop, especially against the gloss work of this hardcover. I'm hoping it's coming through in the video, but yeah, really striking. As far as the spine design goes, it's basically just a field of black with white text. We have Mr. Miracle, the creator's publisher, and it's as simple as that. I honestly really like that. I'm definitely familiar with this creative team. I know I have read and reviewed the Batman One Bad Day Riddler that these two came up with, and Batman the Winning Card. I think I might have done other things from them, but those are the ones that stick out in my mind most recently, so definitely a really striking creative team. The back cover as well kind of retains some of the things we've seen on the rest of the dust jacket. The Darkseid is stamped across all of that. With that, we also have some accolades, some reviews there, blurbs about the collection, pricing information, all that stuff. It is pretty standard as far as the back of the dust jacket. Would have loved to see more art, but the Darkseid is still effective and interesting. Okay, and speaking of that dust jacket, I do want to spend one more minute going over it. This time I'll show you the interior flaps, which include a cool little picture of Darkseid. Really like that. I'll go ahead and spread it all out so you can see it as a glance. I guess we can call this a wraparound cover because we have the Darkseid is kind of going across it. But again, it's more of a minimalist approach. There's not a ton of design work here, but I still think it's very effective. It definitely underscores that pop of color we get in the Mr. Miracle font and the image of Mr. Miracle, which I like. Now, under the dust jacket as well, on the hardback book itself, we have this kind of, I'm going to call it a light teal. And then we have the stamped Mr. Miracle. On the spine, we have the same kind of red, shiny font that has all the detail work. And on the very back of the hardback collection, we have a little DC logo, which is nice to see. I think this Under the Dust Jacket is not overly fantastic. I love the color on it, but I would have loved to see an art print, maybe have it a glossy hardback book. But, I'm still happy with what we have here. It's still really nicely made. And now for all you prospective collectors out there, I did want to provide a quick look at the binding of this guy. Again, this is the standard size hardcover, and we have what looks like a glued binding here. So my pages didn't lay out perfectly flat, and there is a little bit of gutter loss, but it wasn't anything too critical, and I find if I push down the pages, I didn't really miss out on too much whatsoever. Pretty standard stuff from a glued binding like this as far as I'm concerned. Okay, and with that, we can go ahead and dive into the collection itself. As I said, this is the standard size hardcover edition. There's also trade paperbacks, deluxe oversized editions. There's an absolute edition. You can find it digital, single issue, things like that. But after the title page, publication information, we have the first issue in the collection. And I should have said it earlier, but trigger warning, this book does also deal with suicide attempts, or at least one. That's actually kind of how this whole story begins. We get a brief kind of little paneled glimpse catching us up on who Mr. Miracle is, scot-free, where he came from, what his origin is, what his whole deal is with Apocalypse, A New Genesis, kind of the fourth world titles. And then after that, we kind of go to the present day where he has survived a suicide attempt and he was able to escape death. Before we get into that, though, I would just like to talk a little bit about what we have in those introductory couple pages or panels. We basically have an introduction to the Mr. Miracle character. Essentially, with the characters over at DC, part of the fourth world, there's basically like an ultimate good figure named the High Father, and a kind of ultimate bad guy or evil in the person of Darkseid, who reigns over Apocalypse. Now, High Father reigns over New Genesis and Darkseid over Apocalypse, and basically they each have a son. High Father has Scot-Free, Mr. Miracle. Darkseid has Orion. And they have this huge war. It's really ugly, and ultimately they have a peace agreement when they both exchange sons. So they will raise the other one's sons, and that kind of cements their treaty to kind of do a ceasefire for now. So you have Mr. Miracle scot-free. He is the son of this kind of benevolent figure who rules over New Genesis, but he is traded to like the ultimate evil, and he is raised in this evil kind of torture planet known as Apocalypse. His childhood was beyond traumatic, but in Apocalypse he also met his future wife, Big Barda, and this takes place sometime after. He's become kind of a hero and magician-like figure on Earth, but we have him at a real interesting kind of midlife crossroads period of his life, and this whole story really feels like an examination on life, marriage, fatherhood, legacy, purpose, identity, just so much. There's also a lot that tackles kind of mental health issues, depression, things like that, and I just was really fascinated at everything it touched upon in just a couple short issues. I know much has been said about this run on Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerads, and I don't think I'm going to be adding anything new to the wheel. You're just going to get my impressions of this book. I'll say from a personal experience kind of framework, this is a run that I have wanted to read for a long time. Again, a huge thank you to Jake from The Brave and the Boys for providing this copy. I'm a big Tom King fan, and I do enjoy the artwork of Mitch Gerads. They're an incredible just team together, and I know that this is considered one of the best of premier works from this team, and having read it, I certainly see that argument. I greatly enjoyed it myself, but it's so much different than I thought. Honestly, I didn't really know what to expect. I knew it tackled some mental health issues, and I know it tackled kind of existential ideas and stuff, but I cannot believe how surreal this all felt. There's this kind of narrative device as you make your way through that you're not really sure what to believe. Do we have an unreliable narrator? Is everything we're seeing actually happening? Because scot-free Mr. Miracle almost has like hallucinogenic situations, or the whole time you're kind of wondering, is this kind of all in that weird space? Like, is he dying? Has he been corrupted? Is he the only one that's seeing things clearly and everything around him is getting messed up? But basically we have scot-free recovering from this suicide attempt. His wife, Big Barda, kind of tries to rally around him, support him, and we find out that Darkseid has finally found the anti-life equation, one of his biggest kind of quests ever, and that he's restarted this war, and that all humanity humanity could be on the brink of Darkseid's complete takeover. And so Orion has basically mobilized. The Highfather is gone. He is dead. And basically Orion has taken the mantle, taking over New Genesis, and the war begins anew. And it's really intense. And we keep having like Mr. Miracle and Big Barda kind of boom tubing over to New Genesis or Apocalypse to fight in this war. But I think the real strength of this comic comes in the more mundane, kind of everyday slice of life moments in the midst of this kind of crazy interstellar superheroic adventure. We have these really subtle moments between man and wife. There's so many different looks at just snapshots of the day-to-day kind of intimacy, the strife, the reconciliation, the tender moments within a marriage. And I really just applaud what I see here. It's honestly one of my favorite depictions of marriage I've seen in a big two Marvel or DC comic. I think it's really nuanced. I think it feels very true and organic. To see Barda's love for Scott Free is just palpable and really, really just humbling and just beautiful to look at. And honestly, Scott's love for her as well. We see them through the pages actually start a family. She becomes pregnant, gives birth to their son, and I really just like the turn we have there. We get to see them bond with the newborn. There is something towards the climax of this collection where actually Darkseid agrees to stop the war if Scott will give his only son to him, kind of perpetuating that same deal. Big Barda's like, absolutely not. Scott Free's like, we have to at least entertain the idea, because now Scott's also in charge of a lot after something happens to Orion, and they get pulled more and more into this conflict. As the war intensifies, we even have them kind of taking turns, like one of them stay at home with the baby, the other one fight in this huge war. And yeah, it's just really wild. I'm honestly leaving out a ton because I don't even know what to touch on. There's so much. It's such a rich book. We have them confront Granny Goodness, who was kind of their, someone who raised them, kind of their caretaker. We have them addressing other fallen comrades or people that have passed away. We have them coming to terms with building a family and what to do when your marriage isn't perfect, and how do you still cover and love each other? How do you get through these kind of changes in seasons in life? And it's so funny in this book that has this wild, just big, epic scale, like universal war. This really does feel like a slow burn that's heavy character driven, psychological, interesting, and I just really, really loved it. There's something absolutely surreal about this too, where I never really felt like I had my footing and my grounding 100% certain. There were several moments where I was kind of wondering, is this like the anti-life equation, like kind of having an effect? Are we seeing what we're supposed to be seeing? Is everyone else deluded? Is Scott deluded? Is this, again, a kind of case of an unreliable narrator? Or is this how it's going down? And even by the end of the book, there's kind of this question of what is real? Are you choosing to live in something that's simulated and inauthentic, or is this what's true and what's matter, or what matters rather? And I love the questions this kind of poses. Again, there are some explicit moments in this collection, some slight nudity and scenes of sexuality, nothing too overly graphic in my mind, but definitely, like I mentioned earlier, viewer discretion advised. There's moments of extreme violence, like I said, instances of self-harm, but other than that, just a really wonderful work. I really cannot believe, like I said earlier, how much this book covers. Ultimately, the plot resolves. They stop Darkseid, and they ultimately have kind of a happy ending together, growing their family and just retaining their unity, Scott Free, Mr. Miracle, and Big Barda, and their children. I just love it. It's so hopeful, it's beautiful, but again, it kind of has an existential question at the end, and it really is just philosophical. It's so rich. I really think that I'm going to get even more out of this upon reread, because I think there's just so much here, and I'm not convinced I haven't missed out on layers of it. One thing I do want to say about the art, Mitch Gerads is in rare form here. I love the kind of surreality and kind of dreamlike quality we get to some of the art here. It still has a lot of his trademark styles, which I like. There's some kind of grit to it, which I think is interesting. I love how many unique character models we have showcased, but I think also something worth mentioning is how many 9-panel kind of page layouts we have. This is obviously a really interesting throwback style, the 9-panel layout. I think of things like Killing Joke or Watchmen or some classic older school like Golden or Silver Age comics, and I love that we have that in effect throughout this book in really meaningful ways. I think there's a playfulness and modern feel to that 9-panel layout, but I love that they evoke it so much in this collection. After the issues, we have this selection of extras at the back, which is largely kind of a cover art or variant cover art gallery. We get a couple behind the scenes images, but I was really happy to see some extras included in this work. I would have loved to see more of a grand essay or epilogue or something with a piece this rich. I know that we do have a lot of extras, like I said, in that recently released Absolute Mr. Miracle volume, but I was still happy to see some at the back of this book. And now, the grade. For easily the most psychologically rich character study I've read from Marvel or DC Comics in I can't remember how long, the Comic Book Report is happy to give Mr. Miracle by Tom King and Mitch Gerads from DC Comics an A-. I think that this sounds interesting to you and you can handle some of the mature themes. I think that this is really a must read. Honestly, there's so much left on the table here that I cannot wait to reapproach this book, maybe in a year or two, letting it digest and simmer in the back of my mind, and then re-exploring it, see what I missed out on, see what is still here. Like I said, it's really, really rich and dense reading. It feels like a slow burn, and yet there's so much action and intrigue here. I really do think that these creators touched on something that is just critical to life in general. There's such a slice of life snapshot here. They carried and really depicted the richness of a marital relationship and family relationships and really coming to different seasons in your life and just big existential questions. They covered it all so well. Honestly, I'm still reeling from it. But that's just my opinion. Have you read Mr. Miracle? What are your thoughts? Do you have any of the editions? Have you checked out the Absolute? I'd love to hear what you think in the comments section. Again, a huge thank you to Jake from The Brave and the Boys, and until next time, this has been the Comic Book Report. Please don't forget to leave your like, that comment we talked about, and maybe check out another video on your way out. Thanks, and have a good one.